Welcome to Keep It Humane, the podcast.
Where we talk about animal control, shelters, and animal welfare, and the people doing the work.
With your hosts,
Ashley Bishop.
And sometimes Ashley Bishop.
And Daniel Ettinger, helping people help animals. Yo! I never say that anymore. How's it going? This is Keep It Humane, the podcast. Check us out. Keep us humane. How about keepithumane.com? Keep It Humane on all the socials. How you doing, Bishop?
Good, man. Good. It's my mom was in town. She just left early this morning. So we got to hang out with her. We went to go play bingo
Did you
yesterday.
win anything?
Yeah. Husband won $130.
Let's go. That's dinner.
Uh,
That's a dinner date.
yeah, it is. I mean, technically we made even, so but still it counts.
Yeah.
But no, it was a good weekend and just ready to get back into it, man. This last 2 weeks have been a little tough, but I'm excited to just kind of get back into work and get things going. Our building's moving along and we're starting to get more and more meetings, so I'm excited for that. And I don't know, just been a good restful couple of days. How
That's
about you,
good.
homie?
Good. I just got off a cruise, and Wisconsin Bishop actually can't join us this week because she was working on the cruise as Mrs. Washy Washy. So if you've ever cruised before, there's hand washing stations before you go into the buffet, and that's where Bishop was. She was telling everybody washy washy, and then and then she does this little dance. It's great. But she stayed on the cruise, so she won't be with us. She'll be back next week. It's crazy how many jobs she has, man. I can't keep up.
Jack of all trades.
She sure is, but cruise was incredible. I always I don't know. I think we should all just be on vacation all the time. Like it's just and go back to just normal human interactions and sharing and bartering, I guess. Like, oh, you do this well or you do that well. It's fun not to have any sort of I guess you'd say responsibility when you're on a cruise. Obviously there's safety and food and normal parental responsibility, but um, it's nice to be offline for sure.
I bet, man. I know I tried to leave you alone as much as possible so that you could just focus on the kiddos and enjoy the time.
Well, thank you. We did. It was a lot of fun, and I have a scenario based question for you. So you're in Mexico and you're chilling at a beach. You're just chilling there. You have the kids, and you see these people doing you pay to take a horse down the beach and
Mm-hmm.
get photos and make it
Mm-hmm.
that epic Instagram story. So one of the guides was coming down and the horses look good, their body condition is fine, everything seems fine. Um, but he has two dogs that are kind of trolling with the horses, they're part of his group, you could
Mm-hmm.
tell. And one of the dog, it's one's a pity. She's super pregnant, just giant belly, you can tell she's ready to pop. And these two boys are playing football, and one of them misses the ball, and the dog yoinks the football, and she's starting to play with it, and they're scared. The boys probably are from the cruise. And me being just my brain, no matter what happens in life, where I go, what I do, I could be 65 and I could be in corporate sales at that point. I'll still have the mentality of working the field. And
Mm-hmm.
so I'm just curious, the dog takes the ball and nobody's coming to get it. So, would you have done anything, or would you just been like, oh,
I don't know. In another country, I think it would be, it really depends. I don't know, man. I don't know the answer to that.
well, me being an idiot, I walked over there to the dog. By this time I got there, the ball was flat because it wasn't like a Nerf ball; it was like a real
Mm-hmm.
ball. I
Mm-hmm.
felt bad, and then she's sweet, there's no issues with this dog whatsoever. And so I'm trying to get it from her, and she's like, absolutely not. And I was like, all right, well, guys, the ball's flat. They were like, she could just have it. I was like, it looks like that's gonna happen. And then I walk back and sit down, and 2 minutes later, as the tour guy comes back, he walks over to the dog and just starts beating the shit out of this dog. I was like, what the, like, did this just happen? I got mad, like, I got real mad, Bishop. And so I walked over there to him and I was like, do you speak English? And he was like, no. And I like just pointed at the dog and was like, no mas, no mas. And he was like, he just shook his head. I was like, it makes no, like, why would you do that? Like, I understand, like, maybe culturally things are
Yeah.
different, but like the dog did not associate flattening and taking, I don't even think the dog had the ball at that time, to be honest. Cause when I looked over, like, I just saw him wailing on the dog's head and I was like, what the fuck? So, yeah,
Yeah, no, I would have said something, but I would have been in there in Spanish, like,
yeah,
what are you doing?
yeah, I didn't know what to say. Like, I couldn't really communicate that well. Well, I just said like no mas. So, and then the dog, walked back with them all like at a distance. You could tell the dog was like, this sucks. But I don't know. It was not like I don't go to other countries looking to start shit, but don't beat your dog in front of people. Like that's the other, or just don't beat your dog in general, not even in front of
Oh,
people. How about that?
oh my God. Yeah, icky.
And then the cool part to just wrap this up, because it's not always negative. The last night, like I'm in my room and like we have a balcony and I could just hear it like in the ocean because we weren't going super fast. And you can hear the blowholes from these dolphins. They're just like going crazy. And I'm like, I look out there and they like keep coming around like in these circles and getting into like
Hmm.
the back of the boat where I guess the waves are from
Hmm.
from the engines or the motors, whatever you call them. And they're just riding these things for like 2 hours. And I was just enamored. Like they're just
That's
like
awesome.
silly ass dolphins, just like I don't know what they were doing other than like having fun. That's what it looked like. I was like, this is cool. Everybody was like enamored by it. You'd see people like down on the lower decks. You could see them like kind of gasping, like, look, there's dolphins. So that was pretty cool.
The ocean's wild, man. Nature's scary. Last night we watched a documentary on a disaster over in New Zealand where some people unfortunately had passed away. They were I don't know what specific volcano it was at, but people were there on vacation and sightseeing and stuff, and it erupted. And whoo, if you have a chance to watch that documentary, watch it. Nature's scary, bro.
Dude, it's so scary. And like I refer to the ocean as like a liquid universe,
That's a really, really good term. A
right? Like
liquid, like absolutely.
it's a liquid universe. Like I don't know what else I'd call it. Like it's scary. It's like even when I take the dog to dog beach and we're in the water like 2.5 feet, I'm like, no, this is scary. I'm not ready for this. I'm not ready. Craziness.
Uh, yeah, the volcano rescue from Wakari.
Wakari?
It's yeah, Wakari, but it almost sounds so it's New Zealand, so it almost sounded like the WH was a V when
Okay.
everybody was talking about it, like the locals. But it's interesting. Like I don't, it was an interesting documentary and how, and it kind of ties into what we're talking about today, you know, for this instance, on the natural disaster like this, I think about it from the epidemiology side of things. Disaster epidemiology is wild if you think about it overall. You saw it with Chernobyl, you saw it with Fukushima and those things. This documentary, there was no plan if
Uh,
something went bonkers. There was no plan, like absolutely no plan.
mm,
And they were at least an hour and a half from the volcano island to the mainland.
wow.
And people, it was bad. It was bad. And the thing about it is that it didn't erupt in a way where like lava was a thing. It was the steam that burned everybody.
Wow. So like isn't there like a threat of gas too? Or
Yes.
okay.
Yeah. And then all the natural gases that come from this.
Okay.
It was gnarly. It was really, really gnarly that there was no plan in place by anybody, whether it was the local government, the army, everybody who helped in this disaster was local to the
Mm,
community
mm.
and people who had private helicopters and things like that. They did the
Jeez.
blunt of the rescue.
And that just, I mean, it ties into what we're going to talk about here in our profession. Like, do you have a plan? And what does that plan look like? And how often are you? I love scenario-based training. Like, how often are you just doing that continuing education? Like, all right, like I think I've shared this on the podcast maybe a while ago, where uh, I worked with our crime scene team. This is a couple years ago, and did a surprise emergency response for our ACOs. I made it look like it was a real, like, we're going now. Like, they had no time to prepare for it, and that's what you want. And I remember one of the officers getting upset about it, and I can understand and I can empathize why they would be upset. At the same time, your job is, you know, at any given moment, an unplanned emergency may happen. So you're telling me who you are in that moment, because you are basically saying how I act in this scenario is how I'm going to act in a real situation. And so we had a good conversation after it. And I think that, it gave some clarity into the role, and maybe it was something that they didn't expect. They were kind of new to being an officer as well. They had some ideas of what animal control was, but I don't think they really understood. And we made it like we made it like real. We had like a whole crime scene. So it wasn't like responding to a natural disaster or anything like that. It was responding to a pretty complex animal cruelty investigation that included working with our law enforcement partners, because there was like a potential homicide as well. And so
Hmm.
like we had animal cruelty as a piece. We were out there pretty much the whole day. And, I learned a lot too. Like, what should I have done differently to prepare for it? Had water available, maybe, staging area for if, and not just for like breaks, but staging area if people need to, break off to use the restroom, that type of stuff. So, but you should plan. And what does that plan look like? How often can you, do exercises to make sure you're sharp? Like, those are real things that we need.
Yeah, for sure. And I think about it, and this is a part of the job that I think I could do a lot better on. And we always learn, we're a small municipality, we don't do mass seizures like we're about to talk about. But I mean, for us, a mass seizure is like 20 animals. Like you're talking about filling up like a whole area of our facility that, we already are busting at the seams at. So that can be a lot from us. And, for even small shelters, that are in rural areas, 5 dog seizure, 5 cat seizure, 10 animals can be a lot.
Hmm.
It's always something that we can learn from. And I'm so glad. And, again, I always shout her out, Micah, I'm so glad we have her because she's been through that. And then we get to learn from her in all different situations. And, I'm so grateful for her that I get to learn from her and how to do things better. And then we learn together because every situation is different, guys. Like every situation, I think everything that we've done so far together as a team has been different. From our mass seizure of 230 plus mice and feeder rats and 27 venomous snakes and
Hmm.
2 cats, a sugar glider. I'm missing something. But like, what do you do? What do you prepare for that? Like, how do you, where are you going to house that amount of animals? On that small stature, like, yeah, we could probably do that amount in dogs, but what do you do with 235 mice and rats?
I know. I mean, it's those things that you're not prepared for. We had it with chameleons one time. This was several
Oh,
several years ago, and this dude let his chameleons free reign in his apartment. It was the wildest
oh.
thing I've ever seen, dude. And so then we had to like try to get them all back. It was unbelievable, because then you don't know. Like, you're looking under every, because a chameleon can go anywhere. They can live under the freaking refrigerator.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a crazy time. And then you're like, how do we make sure that they're housed properly? Chameleons need a drip system for water
Mm-hmm.
and proper heat, all that stuff. And like, if you're not prepared for it, it can be a lot on the back end. So
Yeah, especially if you have to move that day. Luckily for us, we had a few days. Every animal had what it needed for where it was at the time. But I don't know that we would have been able to move within 24 hours for
Mhm.
that mass pool of animals.
Totally.
Um, it took us 10 hours to get everybody out
Wow.
on a Sunday.
Wow.
Yeah. It took
Wow,
us a long time.
it's
But
crazy.
let's get into it,
Yeah,
folks.
this is gonna be
Um,
fun. I'm excited.
yeah, this is an interesting case, and I want to preface, guys, that not all of the facts have come out for this case. So right now, even things have changed from the initial report of everything that's been going on.
Mhm.
So please keep that in mind. So we are going to talk about that mass seizure that happened in California over the last 48 hours. Rescue target in Lake Hugh seizure of over 300 pets pushes back on claims from LA officials. So this was posted today, early morning. And the original posts were saying that 700 animals were being removed from a property. And it looks like we've gone down to about 300 total.
Mhm.
So this comes from ABC News. The pet rescue organization at the center of a massive animal seizure in Lake Hughes on Friday is speaking out and providing new details. On Instagram, Rock and Paul's Animal Rescue is claiming it is receiving serious threats and some dogs were injured by the County of Los Angeles Department of Animal Care and Control on Friday during the raid. A search warrant for violation of animal welfare laws was served on 266th Street West around 7 a.m. In total, 360 animals were taken from the home, including 250 dogs and 66 cats that could soon go up for adoption. The pets were in the custody of Christy Anda of Rock and Paws Animal Rescue. However, a court order is needed before the pets can be adopted. For now, the pets in the need of veterinary care are receiving that help that they need. The massive seizure followed numerous tips claiming the animals were living in inhumane conditions. So far, no charges have been filed. Deanda said that the raid at her home was unnecessary and wants the animals returned to her care. My animals were not a threat to anybody, she said. They were healthy, they were cared for. The department responded to tips alleging that hundreds of dogs and cats were living in inhumane conditions. The animals were cleaned every day, Deanda said. The animals were rotated out into yards every single day. Every single dog is happy. But residents of the homes in the area said that there's been a foul odor coming from the property for a couple of years. It's been smelly, and whenever they go out to feed, I'm assuming that's what they're doing. It sounds like the world's biggest dog fight, Lake Hughes residents, Dave Canfield said. Another neighbor, Susan, said the odor and lack of infrastructure had long been a problem. The odor is horrific. There is no septic system on the property for the kennel. They have gone without dumpsters for months on end, she said. The department said it has received complaints for years. It wasn't until recently that the department was able to obtain a warrant to go in and remove the animals. There's nothing that I can do. I'm a very stoic person. I'm very sad about the whole situation, and I can't wait to go to court, Deanda said. More than 70 animal care and control staff were on scene for the rescue operation. Officials say it was the largest number of dogs and cats the DACC has ever seized, and it may be the largest case ever in the country. They said a charity chartered a plane to fly about 27 dogs and several cats to agencies in the Pacific Northwest. The massive operation is expected to put a strain on resources and housing capacity at county shelters. The county says that no animals will be euthanized as the result of the operation. DACC is working with adoption partner rescue groups and other animal welfare agencies to transfer currently adoptable dogs and cats so that there's enough room to admit the rescued animals, the agency said. Marcia Medea, the director of DACC, is requesting the public's help to support the rescue and rehabilitation of the animals, either through adoption or donations, to the Los Angeles County Animal Care Foundation. We have 7 animal care centers in the county. 5 are taking in animals from the situation, and there they will be examined more thoroughly by veterinarians and medical staff, given any treatment that they need, vaccines, and any sort of attention that they may need.
Well, just
Oof.
a couple of things jump off the page. Like, first off, where did the false reporting come from, or I should say misreporting,
Mm-hmm.
of 700 animals, and like who came up with this is the largest seizure ever. Like, why, I guess, why is that important in the context of this situation? Like, I understand if we're trying to look for resources like donations and things like that. Like, it's a huge burden on uh, LA County Animal Services to have to handle and house and deal with that many animals. Like there is no doubt that that's a strain on all of their resources. So I understand maybe that perspective, but I'm just curious, did it come from someone within LA County, or was that the news misreporting some of that information, or just maybe somebody spoke before they had all the facts?
Obviously, somebody misspoke because how do we go from 700 to 300? And honestly, when this came out and the more and more that we're seeing that's coming out of this case and that I'm sure we'll see throughout the next, couple of days, I wonder what this search warrant was for. I really do.
Well, and that's just it. As you look at it from, so her Facebook profile is public, and you can see a lot of photos that Chris has taken during the seizure.
Hmm.
And I mean, she's going to show her side of things, right? Like she's not going to show everything that you know, is either listed in the warrant or, maybe things that could incriminate her. But I haven't seen one dog through these photos that has a bad body condition score. So maybe it's a housing issue. Maybe, there could be so many things that led to the seizure. It's hard to know because we're only seeing it from one angle. We don't have the case report from, LA County or a copy of the search warrant or anything like that.
Correct. And, it brings an interesting point, at this point when you're on scene. And I'm gonna agree with Dan. Most of the photos that I've seen that have come up, even through some of the news stories, none of these dogs seem to be in poor condition, at least from what we can see from photos. And sometimes photos can be deceiving, folks. Don't get me wrong. But I mean, a lot of these guys are not dirty, they're not thin. I I have to lean on what this warrant specifically stated and whether it was more code based,
I mean,
meaning,
yeah.
mhm,
Like if she didn't have the proper license to operate
mhm,
as a rescue, that could be one aspect of it.
mhm.
Um, uh, there's so many factors that could come into play that we just don't have like you said, we don't have the full story. So it could have been, I mean, you talk about sanitation, like they could have been living in filth, but all we're not seeing that piece from like because
Mm-mm.
news cameras weren't allowed in there, right? So like all you're seeing is stuff from the outside, so you don't know the full story for sure.
No, yeah, for sure. Have you done anything close to this size of removal on companion animals like cats or dogs?
Um, no, not that size. The only thing that we've done that is twice, even three times as many was roosters. Um,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it was close to 800 roosters in one call.
Oof.
I know, dude. Uh,
Ooh.
Now it did last over a period of time. We got authority to keep coming. So we had a warrant, and then we came back with consent from the property owner, and
Hmm.
because everything was tagged, and it was a huge process. But I think day one we were, yeah, it was just monstrous, the amount of animals that we had to, I mean, roosters, chickens, I mean, I would imagine, it's the same process with dogs, cats as well. It's just a little bit crazier because roosters try to fly away from you, and if they're not in cages, or
Yeah, and you can't house them together either. I
no, you
know.
can't. Yeah.
Yeah, I know they're here local. Well, Micah was not almost a couple of years in, I think. They had 75 roosters that they had to go in and seize. I know back at my old shelter down south, I think a year or two after I left, they had to remove a whole bunch of I don't even know what to call them, companion birds. So like your parakeets and your lovebirds
Oh,
and something
sure.
like, I know it was like 100 or plus more that they had to house as well. Um, but so I want to get this from your perspective, Dan, because I think you have a little bit more experience in this than I do. Like, where do you start? So you get a call and they're like, okay, we need to move in. Maybe this is an assist agency, you're moving in with code enforcement or PD or whatever, and they're saying, hey, we got 300 dogs. What is the first thing that you do?
Ooh, I mean, I think, you know, it, I always like to look at history. So
Hmm.
what does our database tell us that we have? Do we have any record of an owner or person attached to that property address? Do we have any history? Like if we're working with law enforcement, do they have any history at that address? Like what are we potentially getting into? Is there any known like businesses being operated there? So like in this case, do we know is it a legit rescue? And what is the name, et cetera? So, are they properly licensed, not housed? Are they properly licensed with, all the paperwork that they need to complete on their end, and kind of just checking kind of the overview first, like what are we looking at first. And one of the best things that I do, like, and I'm actually doing it right now, I'm trying to see this property on a map, and they showed an overview of the property on one of the news articles, and
Hmm.
it looked like, it's hard to tell, that like the backyard had like potentially like just a ton of trash uh,
Hmm.
in there, like they weren't disposing of it properly, which could be a huge concern for disease and rodents and all that other stuff. So once once I like get a kind of a baseline, like what are we dealing with the property? I'd like for one of the officers to like either potentially go do a knock and talk or just do a drive by and see what they can see in real time. Can they smell anything from being parked up the street? Can they hear? What can they hear? So like a full scale kind of like um, reconnaissance mission, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
Like what can we
Hmm.
gather from all this? And if somebody has that many animals, like doing a knock and talk is not going to be the end of the world. Like you're not going to lose evidence just because they have no place to take these animals. Like that's so, I mean, even with an animal shelter, like swooping in, like they have to rely on other resources because they don't have the place to take 200, 300 animals. So it's really just focusing on all that and then contacting like your local, if you're not already, and you kind of mentioned it, but if you're not already working with your code enforcement, building inspector, fire department,
Hmm.
local law enforcement, like now you have to have that conversation and have it all planned out. Like, here's what we're dealing with. Here's what the complaints are. Here's what's substantiated. Here's what our probable cause is. Here's what our, like, here's what we are planning on doing. What resources can you contribute to this investigation? And then really having that deeper conversation. Are there national agencies that can jump in? The ASPCA is wonderful for emergency response. HSUS also, or excuse me, Humane World for Animals also has an emergency response team that can help swoop in. There's Texas has please help me on this one. They have is it ASAR?
Oh, air. Um,
It's
yes, Monica
Monica.
over
Yeah,
air. Yeah,
Monica.
Monica
Yeah.
over at air. I,
Okay.
I can't. Animal. Oh God. I'm sorry,
Sorry,
Monica. I
Monica.
know.
She does a great job down there in Texas, though. So like you have those programs, like uh, there's this innate probably feeling like, God, we need to act immediately, like we need to get these animals out immediately. And I get that. And I'm not saying that that's not something we should like overlook, but we also have to keep in mind like what jeopardizes our ability to do the right thing just because we want to act like, oh gosh, like this is horrible. And I've heard that in my career, like, well, if you know about it and you don't act immediately, like, can that be used against you in court? And I don't think it really can. I think if you are able to articulate that we had to do a like full scale, like rescue mission,
Removal. Yeah.
yeah, you have to set that up properly, and every jury in the world will understand what that looks like. You can't go in day of and try to remove 300 animals without a plan in place. Like that's extreme strain on all your staff and resources that there's just no possible way that's going to turn out in your favor. And so I think it's important to try to pre-plan and try to get one of those large, like if they had the opportunity to contact the ASPCA and say like, hey, can you provide any resources in this scenario? What does that look like? What's your response time? Can you help set up temporary shelter, et cetera, et cetera? Like that's what they're designed to do. And so I would look at all those aspects before we just go in. And then it's a logistic, a logistic workup. Like, do you have to have staff on overtime? Do you have to bring staff in on their day off? Like, what time do you go there? Do you, get, like in this case, specifically this case, like I'm looking at the general location of the address and it's BFE. Like, you think LA
Yeah.
County, you think like, Los Angeles downtown, like there's hotels and convenience stores and all that stuff. Like this place, you're calling Public Works and asking them to bring a porta potty, like because you have no place to go to the restroom, and you're going to be out there from 8 a.m. till 10 p.m. Like you have to ask and see if like Public Works can bring portable lighting systems. Like this is dark, like you're going to see constellations like you've never seen before in the nighttime. So all those things have to be thought of. Like you have to have, and it's, I guess my point of like, I'm just spitballing here, but it's really nice and important if you had a checklist because that way you
Yeah.
can go down your checklist and say, okay, like, like people may overlook the lighting system or may overlook the porta potty. Like, and now you're driving, like if I got to go to the restroom and the closest place is 35 minutes away, that's a body that's gone for an hour.
Hmm.
Right. And you can't deny people of that type of stuff. Like that's, they have to have access to that. And then, who's bringing the water, who's making sure that their staff is being refueled and who's overlooking all that. So those having that checklist, having assigned roles for everybody, that's really important. And those days, like, I go back to that rooster case, like those are, great learning opportunities for me and others, like how you properly plan for it and how you successfully do it because the last thing you want is having staff that's just unprepared and then all your evidence gets jeopardized because now they're not making sound decisions because they're worried about the other things that's happening. So
That's a good point. And I want to move on a point as well, which he said is getting other departments involved. And I think that sometimes not only do we forget, but other departments forget to include us in a lot of those things, because we've all been in the houses where, unfortunately they're debilitated and things like that. Call your fire marshals, call your building inspectors. A lot of times it's more than just an animal thing. When you get cases this large, ensure that you have that support from everybody else. Ensure that your warrants, guys, something that we've learned very harshly in the last 3 or 4 years, says everybody and their mother included, because you never know when they have to come on scene.
hmm
A lot of times surprises will go in. I know, we've had issues in the past where we're needed by code enforcement, but we're not listed on the warrant. So that means we have to go out separately to get a warrant for whatever it is that we need to do. But then a lot of times there's not enough for us to go in, um, because of XYZ, because we haven't seen anything. So
hmm
ensure that you put everybody on there, code enforcement, PD, your fire marshals, your building inspectors, and things like that. So that way you do have the ability to move within a given time. Obviously, all of your states and all your jurisdictions should have something if an animal's in imminent danger, obviously. But
hmm
then you still have to go back and make sure that you write those warrants so that the way, you go through the right processes. But I think that's something that I've learned here in the last couple of years, is to ensure that not only are we listed on everybody else's warrants so that we can go in with them, but that they're also listed on ours.
Absolutely. That's super important. Super duper important.
And you'll never know it until you actually get in there.
hmm Yeah. And then you're like, nope, that's uh, you know, it jeopardizes the cases if you're not prepared for it. So, uh,
Yeah, because then you're running around. So, okay, so I guess next step after this, you get your warrant laid out, you talk to whoever you need to talk to, you maybe talk to the owner of the organization or the property or whatever. What are your next steps, Dan? For me, it would be, okay, you're on scene and you got everybody that you absolutely need. How do you start? Where do you begin?
I think the first and most important thing is you have a staging area. So wherever you create that staging area, you really want to have somebody who is probably your supervisor, manager, somebody that's the lead person on this investigation. Really just have a briefing on scene. Likely, even before you do that, it'd be important, especially if you're working with other agencies, to maybe do a briefing, hopefully in person, but if not, maybe a virtual briefing about everybody's roles. And then you from there. when you're on scene, yeah, you just open up like, here's the plan. Team A, you're going to be looking at this. Team B, you're going to be taking photos. Team C, you're going to be handling um, what we would think of like the intake assembly line, like triaging, making sure we have you know, all the lines prepared for, shouting out like, here's where the bathroom is, here's where the water station is, here's where you can wash your hands and change out into another Tyvek suit if you're, one of those persons doing that. So you're really establishing all those roles and kind of guiding everybody to what the day is going to look like. And then, point of contact for each team, like here's this person that you report to, and then you have, your kind of liaisons reporting back up, and then whoever's overseeing everything, really being available. If you're using your radios, like designating a channel specifically
Mm,
for that event, so you're not on
mhm.
your normal radio channel. And then yeah, just really having, I would say, like real time feedback, so that way, if you're monitoring the situation and there's bottlenecks somewhere, that you can adjust it appropriately. Because I'll tell you what, like when you're dealing with living, breathing, real time, you know, beings, like it's a lot of work. And it's easy to misplace an animal ID number, or transpose an animal ID number, or forget to get photos of this. It
Mhm.
is it's an absolute mess. So really having assigned roles for everybody, making sure that those assigned roles are being handled appropriately, and then having that general oversight, somebody that can float around and make sure everything is working appropriately.
Agreed. Agreed. I think one thing I know that I have forgotten in the heat of the moment is, making sure that there's a streamline of animals getting to safety from scene to vehicle to shelter. Like sometimes that can get lost in translation when things are going on so quickly, like instance here recently where I got bit. I mean, we were having to move 12 dogs off the property. I'm injured, constable's injured. We're trying to get all these dogs off scene, safely for not only the other animals, but also for everybody around us. There's like 20 people on scene that probably don't, and they're just onlookers, whether they're there with the, your county office or whatever the case might be. Sometimes you lose things in translation as far as like what needs to come first. So make sure that you always have a mindset of what you're doing. So that way things can go smoothly just in case somebody does get injured. Well, what are you going to do if somebody does get injured? For me, I was just like, nah, it's just a bite. We're good.
Yeah.
So I keep
Yeah.
going. But if somebody's hurt worse, what are you gonna do? You're gonna, you can't just stop operations in the middle of things. You'll have to, either replace that individual, make sure that they get to safety or the medical treatment that they need, and it's a lot.
It's a whole lot. And I think there's an expectation to be perfect in these worlds. Look,
Yeah,
every investigation, let me just like, there is a lot of areas of gray in investigations. And so
absolutely.
can we be perfect from the aspects of like integrity and maybe legalities? Like we can do our best, but there are going to
Hmm.
be like, again, you might not get the perfect photo of a dog that has some overgrown nails right there on scene. Like
Hmm.
that may come back at the clinic when they're doing the intake. You may miss ticks in an ear on a dog
Hmm.
because there's just so much stuff. So like I would rather us focus on not perfection, but efficiency, in the aspects of like, how can we be efficient and still uphold integrity, still uphold, legal responsibility. And if we miss ticks in an ear on intake at the scene, but catch it back at the clinic, it's not the end of the world, right? Like you can't get, I would imagine, like if you think of one of the biggest profile cases ever in our profession was the Michael Vick dogfighting case.
Hmm.
I would imagine they missed some stuff there, on scene. I would
Yeah.
absolutely imagine that, and that's okay. Like the case was still successful in the aspects of like getting those animals out of there, getting justification for the crimes, etc. Like it's it is hard to be perfect, even in one homicide detective investigation. I'm sure there's times where they miss something, but
Hmm.
they're still able to be successful. So don't focus too much on being perfect. Focus more on like how do we be effective and efficient with without losing some of that integrity, because you don't want to lose the integrity of the case, but you also have to. Um, Here in California, like you have to be able, it's exculpatory evidence, I believe is what it's called. So
Hmm.
you have to be able to provide that as well, which can prove innocence just as much as inculpatory. Is it inculpatory, exculpatory? I don't know the words. I think that might be right. Where, evidence that is included um, provides, provides the, I guess, the substantial charging probable cause evidence, and then the other evidence would be like, oh well, yeah, like there wasn't a crime, etc. So,
Agreed. And I think a lot of the cases that we deal with, especially when they're on mass seizure like this, whether it's, 20 cats in one house or 300 animals in total, there there's always a point where I think somebody just gets overwhelmed. Like the intention was there, and we always know that the intention is there to help, and then sometimes it's just they have the inability to realize that they can only do so much.
mhm.
So it's always good in those instances, and I will say I have a very hard time doing that on scene sometimes. Um, it's hard for me to take myself out of the aspect sometimes. Um, but like Dan said, there's always ensure that you're always trying to give that person the benefit of the doubt, because sometimes you will learn a lot by just talking to somebody and not taking in the scene, if that makes sense.
Totally.
Like, yeah, obviously, we don't want to see animals in distress, nor do we want to see people. And I think that's something that a lot of people outside of our industry forget, is that we generally see it from all sides. It's not just animals, it's the people involved with the animals as well, that makes sometimes these situations very tough. For instance, in that case where we removed all those mice and rats, I mean, there were small children walking around in this home. And when you walked around, I mean, there was human feces on the floor,
Hmm.
there was animal feces on the floor, and these children were walking around barefooted,
I
and they
mean,
were they were
yeah,
young. They were young too. So, you know, sometimes it's hard to get out of that aspect of seeing that, but always know that a lot of times, and I don't know if it would be safe to say that most of the times the intentions were good. And these larger seizures, the intentions were good. It's just it got out of hand.
exactly. And if you look at like what you said, something that I left off is I, I've done this before. There was a courting case several years ago when I was in Denver, and it wasn't like this level. It was like 50 dogs, something like that. And I asked, and it was relatively new at the time, and it's not so new anymore, but uh, where mental health clinicians can respond in the field.
Hmm.
And I asked for a clinician to come out just to assess like real time, like is this person okay, like is there anything that
Mm.
they need specifically, just to make sure, like because it you got to think about it this way, and we tend to lose, I don't want to say tend to lose sight, that's not the right way to say it, but we tend to, I would think, maybe be a little jaded when it comes to um just the entirety of the situation. This is like, think about it. If this person who runs this rescue that we're talking about today, like their day, every single day is, dealing with 200, 300 animals, like they're waking up today and that their whole life has changed. Like that is no
Yeah.
longer any part of their like routine, and that's hard, like that, like you've changed that person's life, and maybe it's a blessing for that person, like maybe okay, like that person specifically doesn't have that crazy strain and stress on their life anymore, but you gotta look at it that way too, like this person's life has been uprooted, like
I didn't
everything
even
has
think about
been
that.
right, and so like are they, I mean, and it's scary, but like suicide watch, like, is this
Yeah.
something? Is this something that this person needs to just, we need to make sure they're going to be healthy moving forward because we are jumping in and truly changing their life forever. And it's
God,
surprising.
such a good point, Dan. Such a good point.
I can't say it's surprising because I don't know this case and we're
Hmm.
speaking kind of generally. But I, like, it's interesting that they weren't arrested. So,
Hmm.
like they were given interview, like an opportunity to interview with the news and whatnot. But like, think about it that way. Like some people get arrested in these situations too,
Hmm.
right? And so like it's life changing. And I talk about it all the time from the aspects of like why I love this job and like all that stuff is like because we do have the ability to change lives forever, good and bad, I guess you could say. Like in this scenario, maybe the rescue owner thinks that it's bad, but it might be good. It might actually be good for them. They just don't realize like what that looks like. Maybe in the moment they feel like it's bad because their whole
Hmm.
their whole identity has been wrapped around this situation. Like if in you were part of the Luann Strickland stuff, weren't you? When we
Hmm.
talked about her, like this
Hmm.
is very similar to the Luann Strickland
Yes.
stuff, where like she had 400 dogs, like that was her complete identity, and like now, like same kind of situation. Like this woman, her I don't know how long she's been operating that rescue, but this woman has, her whole life kind of around that. So it's got to be rough. And that's why I think it's important just to look at that side as well.
That's such a good point though, Dan, because I look at myself, I'm very much routine, and you can ask my husband, like, on the weekends, I have a very routine. Friday, I watch certain YouTube channels. Sundays are my days to watch my grass cutting YouTube videos that come out every week, and if that gets thrown off, I mean, it throws me for a loop, it gets me out of that pattern. And I can only imagine when it's on a mass scale like that, where, for me, honestly, Dan, I don't know that I've ever thought of it in that perspective or that way. So, shouts to you for, making sure that we're thinking about that. Cause yeah, that's not really something that I've ever thought about. Um,
You can't,
you know,
yeah. I guess like to me, you can't lose the human side. Like people are human,
absolutely.
but you could still do your job effectively and not be
Hmm.
influenced by that. You just have to remember like that's
Hmm.
a human being as well. Like in their intentions and their perspective, they in their mind thought they were doing the right thing. So how do you
Yeah.
balance that?
Yeah, what a good perspective to have, man. I didn't like, geez, I didn't even think about that, honestly. Um, okay, so we've got all the animals off scene. What kind of evidence are you categorizing, Dan, on a
Whew.
case like this with this amount of animals? I don't
Well,
even know where to start other than enclosures.
I mean, if you're watching the video, and this, if we're using this case as the example, like there's multiple dogs in individual um, like fenced in areas.
Hmm.
I didn't see any dog houses in there, right? So like there's no protection from the elements. But you first and foremost, your first evidence of rule of thumb is like the animal itself. Like what
Sure.
condition is the animal in?
Hmm.
And then you go into, food, water, shelter, and that's after like ruling out any medical concerns for the animals, any immediate needs. And then do they have, proper housing, sanitation, um, just those general kind of things that you would look for on a small scale case. It would just be magnified because now you have 300 animals to do that with.
What do you think people miss the most in a case like this? Like, what is something that you think that would be missed in a case like this? And here's the thing then, and again, I'm always gonna shout out to Micah because Micah makes me think about these things all the time. She's a goat, man. She's such a goat. Looking at food bins, what
Hmm.
do they look like? Like, open them up. Are the
Hmm.
bags open? Are the water bowls, dry and moldy? Um, what's
Are
the
there
other thing?
are there the mealy worms in the food because it's been
Ugh,
sitting for so long?
yeah.
That's another thing. One of the things, we talked about cats is getting a good ammonia level reader.
Mm-hmm.
What's that ammonia like? Um, and then missed. What I think is missed a lot is witness statements from
Mm.
people that either have direct knowledge of the rescue, uh, neighbors, even a statement from the suspect themselves. I think
Hmm.
that sometimes gets overlooked in those situations. So getting, getting sworn statements on other from others that may have more information that could lead to, just substantiating the evidence that you have. I think that often gets overlooked.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of some of the more recent cases where, it wasn't necessary. It was obviously they had too many animals, but there's been a situation where, a house, even if you know if it's clean, folks, if you walk into a house and it's overtly clean and you can smell that it's overtly clean,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of times that will tell you a lot. Not only that, look at the baseboards, folks. Look at the baseboards in the homes that you go into. It will tell you a lot about the history of this household. Um, you know, um, I think in the last two cases where this was a thing, you could tell while the house might have been quote unquote clean, you can tell where damage had already been done due to the amount of urine on the floor and
Mm-hmm.
feces on the floor. I mean, look at the warping in your floors, on your walls. I've had situations where you can look at a wall and the sheetrock is just literally melting into itself, for the only reason other than it being soiled for a very long period of time. Like little things like that. Like look at your baseboards, look at your door jams. um, it can tell you a lot about the history of that household over time.
And I'm trying, I want to really remember who told me this just so I can give them the credit due. For these hoarding cases, try to find a calendar or some sort of
Mm,
a memorialized date because I can really play, pretty well into like the forensic aspects of how long it's been going on.
mm,
And what tends to happen is that calendar stuck on a significant timeline. Like,
mm-hmm,
let's say they lost a loved one or maybe they lost a job, something just major happened and they kind of just, in a sense, gave up on life. That calendar may show, right now
mm,
it's are we in March of 2026?
mm-hmm,
That calendar may not have been turned since December of 2021, right? Maybe it's COVID or something like that, and that'll give you a glimpse on like, how long that this possibly had been going on. So I think it's important to
mm.
like I think it's important to just remember to look for those little things. There's so much other stuff that like we overlook, whether it's like veterinary records in the moment, medication that the animals are taking. So just remembering to look for all the small things.
Yeah, now that I think about it, a good one probably too to look at is expiration on food and canned goods. That might be an also a good indicator.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Uh,
Yeah.
Yeah, overall, shouts out to the team that had to do all of this. It's I can't imagine. I mean, 70, animal care control individuals. I mean, that is wild. I can't
Wild.
even think of 70 people that I know in this industry that would be able to come and just help, in a situation like this. So shouts out to them, and everything that they've had to go through here. And, honestly, we'll see where this case turns out. I think it says a lot about, we have 700 animals, now we only have 300. What were the grounds that they were able to go in on? I'm curious to know what they find out about all these animals, what their medical histories are, and if they were really in, situations where, it wasn't conducive to, the five domains, which we talked about last week.
Mm. And I would
Um,
think too, like for them to get a warrant, like I think that they provided the substantial evidence that they needed. I just,
mhm,
I just, I would love to know like the full case aspects just to know like um, it's crazy like from an overview like we only see it from what's reported, um
correct.
but my gosh, like the impact that had on their other calls for service
Yeah.
for that day too, right? Like um my gosh, like those folks had that's a strain. So shout out to all the other teams too that were able to step up, man. It's a hard day's work.
Yeah, correct. Yeah. And I will see, we'll continue to follow up on this case and see where it goes. And, we'll continue to follow I wanted to talk about this because I think it puts into perspective on, what do you do in a case like this where you're having to remove this many animals? It's to me, it's insane. For me and my small, even in some of the bigger shelters that I've worked for, 700 animals that you think you're going in for. And even if you do come out with more than 100, like, good Lord, that's a lot.
Hmm.
That is a lot, folks.
Too many, too many.
Yeah, man.
Honestly, t
Jeez.
talking about it stresses me out. I'm not even joking. Like I'm like I can feel it in my bones, like just like the idea of like
For everybody involved. I mean, from the
everybody,
rescue owner,
yes,
yeah, from the rescue owner to those that had to go out there, to the veterinary teams that are having to evaluate all of these animals, to the shelter staff that is having to care for these animals on top of whatever animals that they still have. Um, I mean, just all around for everybody, it's a lot.
it's so much. So yeah, shout out to everybody, and man, just take that break when you get a chance because you just put in a hell of a lot of work. So,
Yeah, and breathe and then folks, I always have to say, wait for all the facts to come out.
oh yeah,
Really, really wait for all the facts to come out. Because again, we're only seeing really small snippets of what's going on, whether it's between the rescue organ owner and, authorities. There's still very small pieces and there's large information that we're missing, I feel, from this case. So we'll see what comes of it as, the months and weeks go on.
totally. Well, thanks for this. Is a great topic. Thanks for thinking of this one. And remember, let's continue to help people.
Help animals.
Keep it humane.
Keep it in mind.